Good day, students. Welcome back to your virtual biology class brought to you by IOTA Virtual Learning. I remain your digital science teacher, Mr. Kehinde Adesina, and I've been bringing you biology lessons on this platform. In the last lesson, we discussed the types of reproduction, which are sexual and asexual reproduction. We explained asexual reproduction in details. Now, in this lesson, we will be focusing on the various types of sexual reproduction. So come along with me, let's learn today. Sexual reproduction is a type of reproduction that involves the fusion of gametes. So, a male gamete and a female gamete fuses together to form a zygote, which later develops into a young offspring. In other words, in sexual reproduction, offsprings are produced by fusion of two different sex cells or gametes, which usually come from two different parents. There are two major types of sexual reproduction. These are conjugation and fusion of gametes. In these two types of reproduction, meiosis is the major type of cell division that controls or underlies both processes. So it will be important for us to discuss meiosis in details. First of all, let's look at the major differences between mitosis and meiosis. Mitosis is a cell division that occurs in somatic cells or body cells which are not involved in reproduction. It produces two genetically identical diploid cells called clones, and it's involved in growth and repair of cells. On the other hand, meiosis is a cell division that occurs in germ cells or gamete-producing cells. It produces separate four genetically distinct cells that are haploid. Meiosis is the process involved in gamete production during sexual reproduction. Let's look at meiosis in details. Meiosis, as said earlier, is a cell division that produces four cells which are having half of the number of chromosomes from the parent cell. It is the major type of cell division responsible for production of egg cell and sperm cell in higher animals and also pollen grains and ovules in flowering plants. Let's look at the stages of meiosis. Meiosis is often regarded as a reduction division. This is because it takes place twice and it halves the number of chromosomes in the parent cell. Let's look at the first meiotic division. At prophase 1, after the chromosomes pair up to become a daughter chromosome, or what is called bivalent, two daughter chromosomes pair up at a point called the chiasmata. This process is called crossing over. During this process, there is exchange of genetic materials between the pair of chromosomes. The quantity and quality of genetic information that is exchanged at this point differs from one individual gamete to another. This is why no two individuals of sexual reproduction can ever be 100% alike, not even identical twins. At metaphase 1, just like mitosis, the nuclear membrane disappears and the spindle fiber is formed. The bivalent assemble at the equatorial region of the spindle. And at anaphase 1, the bivalent separates and each chromosome moves to the opposite pole of the spindle. At telophase, two daughter cells with chromosome number half as that of the parent are formed. The second meiotic division. This stage is made up of four stages. At prophase 2, the two daughter cells prepare for the second meiotic division. The centriole replicated and a new spindle is formed. At metaphase 2, the chromosomes align themselves on the spindle in the normal usual way. The chromosomes appear doubled and the centriole starts to divide in the position of the equatorial plane. At anaphase 2, each chromosome finally splits into two. The actual chromosomal division takes place at anaphase 2 and each one moves to the opposite poles of the cell. At telophase 2, the two cells are divided into 4, which is a tetrad. Now let's take a look at conjugation. Conjugation is a simple type of sexual reproduction which occurs in lower organisms such as mucor, rhizopus, spirogyra, and paramecium. Conjugation is the process by which nuclear materials is passed from one cell to another. In spirogyra, for example, conjugation starts with two filaments called conjugates coming together to lie side by side. Lateral outgrowth starts to develop opposite each other from opposite cells in the two filaments. The outgrowth meets and the separating wall dissolves to form a continuous channel called conjugation tube. Meanwhile, the cytoplasm of each cell shrinks away from the cell wall and round up to form a gamete. One of the gametes, regarded as the male gamete, migrates through the conjugation tube into the other cell. The cytoplasm of the two cells then fused, and the nuclei also fuse to form a zygote. After some time, the zygote, or what is called zygosphere, will germinate and form a new filament of spirogyra. As mentioned earlier, conjugation also occurs in rhizopus, paramecium, and mucor. Now let's take a look at fusion of gametes. Fusion of gametes is the union of the haploid male and female gamete to produce diploid organism called zygote. This process of the union of gametes to form this zygote is called fertilization. In higher animals, these gametes are formed in special organs called gonads. The male gonads, called spermatozoa or simply sperm, are produced in the testes by a meiotic division called spermatogenesis. In the same way, the female gametes, called oval or eggs, are produced in the ovary also by a meiotic cell division called oogenesis. These male and female gametes are brought together during mating and they unite together by a process of fertilization to form a diploid zygote, which later develops into a new organism. The new organism thus formed combines the characteristics of the male and the female parent into its body. Even though the new organism combines the characteristics of the male and the female parent, they are genetically different from both of them. This process of sexual reproduction leads to variation in population. That is why it is being said that no two individuals formed by sexual reproduction can ever be exactly alike. Do you think plants undergo fusion of gametes? Yes, of course, plants undergo fusion of gametes. In higher plants, male and female gametes are produced in the flowers, which are their reproductive units. The male gamete is called the pollen grains, and they are produced from the anther, while the female gametes are called ovules, and they are produced in the ovary of the flower. The pollen grains and the ovules fuse together during fertilization to form a zygote. After fertilization, the ovules forms the seed, while the ovary becomes the fruit. We will look at this process in details under the concept of reproduction in flowering plants. Now let's look at gamete formation, starting with spermatogenesis. Spermatogenesis is the production of matured male gametes called sperm or spermatozoa. About 200 to 300 million sperms are produced daily in the seminiferous tubules of the testes. These immature sperm undergo a process of maturation in the epididymis to form mature sperm cells. The testes consist of numerous spike-like structures known as seminiferous tubules. This has a central lumen and an outer wall. The outer wall is the main site for the production of sperm. The anatomy of the wall of the seminiferous tubules shows that it consists of numerous cells. One of these cells is called the primary germ cells. The primary germ cells produce immature sperm called spermatids in two different stages. Let us look at the process of spermatogenesis in details. In the phase 1, called spermatocytogenesis, a germ cell divides meiotically into 4 precursor gametes called spermatids, which are immature sperm cells. In the second phase, called spermiogenesis, there is no further division, but the spermatids undergo a process of maturation and differentiation to form mature sperms. Therefore, one germ cell gives rise to 4 spermatids, but spermatids are immature sperm cells incapable of fertilization, and they contain numerous organelles like Golgi bodies, centriole, and mitochondria. This spermatid undergoes the second phase called spermiogenesis to form mature sperm cell in 4 different stages, namely stage 1, Golgi phase. Here the Golgi bodies produce enzymes to form the head of the sperm called acrosome. In the second phase, called acrosomal phase, the acrosome condenses around the nucleus. And the third stage is called the tail stage. Here the centriole elongates to form the tail. The last stage is called the maturation phase, where there is loss of excess cytoplasm to form mature sperm. However, the mature sperm cells are still non-motile. These immobile sperm are released into the lumen of the seminiferous tubules through a process called spermiation. They are then sent to the epididymis, where they spend few days and gain motility. They are now capable of fertilization. Now let's look at the process of female gamete production called oogenesis. The production of eggs in the female reproductive organ called ovary is known as oogenesis. There are large numbers of follicles in the ovaries. There is one primary oocyte in every follicle. And every month, one egg cell matures and is being released into the fallopian tube to allow for fertilization to occur. The eggs are formed from the diploid parent cell formed in the ovaries of the reproductive system. These cells are called oogonium. The oogonium begins development about 3 months during the fetus development in the womb and continues until a certain age. This oogonium multiplies through mitosis before the female reaches puberty. After this mitotic division, the oogonium grows and develops to prepare for meiosis. These cells are called primary oocytes. Meiosis produces one matured gamete. The diploid parent cells produces 2 diploid cells after meiosis, phase 1. The small cell is called polar body or polocyte, while the larger one is called the secondary oocyte. At meiosis, 3 small oocytes and 1 large oocyte with large cytoplasm is formed. While the polocyte disappears, the oocyte differentiates to form a matured haploid egg cell. Now let's look at the summary of what we have learned so far. In this lesson, we have learned that sexual reproduction involves sex cell or gametes produced from 2 different parents coming together to form a zygote. There are 2 types of sexual reproduction, which include conjugation and fusion of gametes. We also learnt that both fusion of gamete and conjugation are controlled by meiosis, and meiosis is a division that leads to production of 4 daughter cells that have half of the chromosomes in the parent. We learnt that conjugation is a simple type of sexual reproduction which occur in some lower organisms like mucorrhizopus and paramecium, and it involves the passing of nuclear material from one cell to another. We went ahead to learn that fusion of gamete is the union of haploid male and female gamete to produce diploid organism called zygote. These gametes are produced in a process called spermatogenesis and oogenesis, which we explain in details. Earlier on, we learnt that mitosis produce 2 daughter cells while meiosis produce 4 daughter cells. Mitosis produce haploid cells while meiosis produce diploid cells. We also learnt that in mitosis, organisms produced are clones, while in meiosis, they are genetically different from each other. Now let's see how far we have learned by answering our WAEC past questions. The first question that we are going to look at today is from WAEC 1996 question 7, and it says, in which of the following structures will cell undergoing meiosis be seen? A. Apices of stem and root. B. In the cortex of stem. C. In the palisade of mesophyll. And D. In the ovary of flower. Think about the options and pick your answer. The correct option is option D, ovary of flower. The ovary of flower are sexual reproductive unit, so they undergo meiosis. The apices of stem and root, the cortices of the stem, and the palisade of mesophyll are all body cells that undergo mitosis. The next question is question 8, 2004, and it says, how many conjugates are involved in sexual reproduction in paramecium? A. 1, B. 2, C. 4, and D. 8. Think about your options and pick the answer. The correct option is option B, 2. 2 conjugates are involved in sexual reproduction in paramecium to donate nuclear materials that fuse together to form a zygote. The next 2 questions we'll look at is question 20 and 21 from 2017, and it says, the diagram below is an illustration of human sperm. Study it and answer question 20 and 21. Question 20 says, the part labeled I is the A. acrosome, B. nucleus, C. mitochondria, and D. the tail. What do you think is the answer? The correct option is option A, the acrosome. The head of the sperm cell is called acrosome. The tail is labeled Roman figure 2, and the mitochondria is at the neck region. Question 21. The function of the part labeled Roman figure 2 is A. Fuse with the ovules, B. Generate energy, C. Help the sperm to swim, and D. Dissolve the membrane of the egg. Think about the option and pick your answer. The correct option is option C, help the sperm to move. The part labeled Roman figure 2 is the tail, and the function of the tail is to help the sperm to move as they journey towards the egg for the process of fertilization. It is the nucleus that fuses with the egg, and it is the neck region where we have the mitochondria that generates energy. The next question is question 19 from 2002. The diagram below is an illustration of two different cells involved in a biological process in mammals. Study them and answer question 19. Which part of P and Q fuse to complete the biological process? A. Roman figure 3 and Roman figure 2. B. Roman figure 4 and Roman figure 1. C. Roman figure 3 and Roman figure 1. And D. Roman figure 4 and Roman figure 2. Look at the pairing critically and pick your answer. The correct option is option C, Roman figure 3 and Roman figure 1. Roman figure 3 is pointing at the nucleus of the sperm cell and Roman figure 1 is pointing at the nucleus of the egg cell. These are the two parts that fuse together to form the zygote. And that will be all for this section of lesson on sexual reproduction in living cells. Thank you for listening to this lesson. I will urge you to look for more questions in your past WAEC to answer in order to acquaint yourself with this concept. Till I come your way next time, keep reading and keep learning. Bye.